They have stolen the heart from inside you, but this does not define you. This is not who you are. You know who you are. All right, well, thanks for entertaining my song for you. This is my favorite song about identity. Identity. Moana teaches us about the power of identity. So, Betty, my little sweet daughter, is joining us for our training today. And the reason is because the reason that identity is so critical for us mothers to forge inside of us is because every time we forge or create or map consciously who we are and who we choose to be, we resurrect, we remember, and we operate from that truth. We model and share and role model that to our children. All right, so let's get started on the identity map. We are going to be coaching on 3 frequencies: the healer frequency, the warrior, and the guardian. So this identity mapping really was birthed through years of working with clients in identity confusion. And anytime I see women comparing themselves, I recognize we're in some sort of identity confusion. And it's really easy to compare ourselves against the different ways that these 3 energy types show up, the way that they produce, the way that they exist, the way that they speak, the way that they manage their business or manage their home. And this creates identity confusion inside of how a woman sees herself, as well as the way that she maps her self-worth. And it just takes longer when we are in cycles of comparison and confusion around the way that we see our roles are and how they coexist together in order to really complement each other. But we're stuck in comparison and competition. And the possibility I want to expose you to is identity clarity. That recognizing your differences actually allows yourself to honor your way of doing or your way of being and your way of thinking. And this really accomplishes freedom. Freedom in the way that you speak, in the way that you are. You accept the truth of who you are. So the principle I want you to write down in your Women's Empire Journal, hopefully you downloaded that already, to use throughout the month as you're listening to the trainings. But the principle is to see things as they really are. And that includes yourself, to see the truth of your gifts, to see the truth of your own identity blueprints, to see and learn about your operating system, which we're going to coach on today, and not just see others, but see the truth of who you are. And so 3 things that this principle supports you in doing. I often get to communicate with healers and guardians to get things done. And sometimes there's translations that are required because it's a luxury to have and take full ownership and accountability over that. Number 2 is, with this identity map, it opens up the door for deeper connections and compassion to begin to exist for the journey. Whenever our loved ones are working through their own self-healing journey, whether that's physical, spiritual, mental, or an emotional journey, we can choose to see ways we can connect with them deeper. And this is really what has happened for me as I've mapped these patterns and consistent modeling of a way of being to me. As we've mapped this out for you, again, this is not science-based. This is the world according to April and her perspectives and her frames and my team, and the way that we interpret information. And if this is useful, awesome. If it's not useful, awesome. That's okay too. But in our world in Women's Empire, it is a really fast way for us to honor one another as we coach each other on this tool. So number 3 is these maps provide rapid understanding so communication skills can skyrocket. And that's what happens. No matter if you're talking to spouse or children or employees or managers or team members or people you work with in your communities and church, being able to honor your own energy type and study the other ones around you gives you the skill set to rapidly understand one another, and therefore you get and accomplish more things in a short amount of time. So the production strategy that I want to expose you to today is to listen and select the primary energy type that you are at your core. So as I share this identity map for you, this is not a box. It's a frame or a lens that you can view yourself and others through in order to create fast or rapid understanding. This is not a box or a narrow way to see yourself or others. And you will use all of these energies in your lifetime. There is likely one, however, that you feel really at home in, even though you step into the others as needed. And it is the interaction of the 3 energy types that really all of us thrive and grow in. So remember, this is not to define you in a certain box. This is to open up perspective so that you have a better understanding of yourself and others. And I know I already said that. So this does not define what someone will or won't do in any situation. It is simply meant to give you an idea of how we interface and process the energy of the world around us. So after we are done with our training today, I would love to hear from you which energy type resonates the most with you. I'd love for you to share that via email or Facebook message or comment in our Facebook community. And you're welcome to comment anytime, any takeaways that you're learning in our Facebook community, or ask for further support or clarity anytime that you need them. And these are some of I love these women in these pictures, because as I've worked with many clients over the years, these are some of the amazing women who have identified with these 3. So you'll just see them sprinkled throughout the presentation today. The next thing I want you to know about the identity map we're coaching on today is it is not a personality type. So energy type is different than personality. I like to think about it like energy. The energy type that you are is like the engine of your car, like the revving system, the energy, the operating system of the car. Personality is like the body style, the car type, the colors, the accents. Those all make the personality of the car, but inside all of that is the engine. And energy is the engine that we're going to be coaching on today. Also, something to know is as we're coaching, there might be people that you interface with or think of as I'm coaching you on this identity map, and some of them are in a wounded state or a wounded season with their energy, with their engine. And so identification of your energy type is a self journey. You can ask others for input. And while all that, we can all agree that energy doesn't lie, a wounded energy type may actually believe certain aspects of their injury are permanent parts of themselves. And because of this, it is possible to misinterpret the energy type of others. Or it might be possible that you might misinterpret the energy type that you are based on a wound. One of our Women's Empire coaches, Brittany, that you'll see right here in this picture under Guardian, she believed that she was a warrior for a very long time because of certain injuries and wounds that she had experienced throughout her life. But really, as she got to the truth of who she is, she feels most at home in Guardian. And warrior was always a temporary energy that she chose to step into, but really doesn't feel at home in. And so she's been in such a journey this last like half of 2019, just feeling like this new connection and returning of strength is coming to her by allowing herself to take off and step out of what was not a natural fit for her, the warrior frequency, and really step into the guardian frequency and own that and live it and operate it and just be okay with recognizing the strengths that she possesses on that energy level. So because of this, it is possible to misinterpret the energy of others, and we respect the law of agency in Women's Empire. So we believe it's not advisable for us to try and identify what others are. They get to have the journey themselves. So if you're tempted to try and be like, oh, my husband is this, or my sister is this, I would invite you to let them be exposed to the content and the material and let them decide, not you decide for them. Let each person decide for themselves. All right, so let's jump in. The healer. We're going to talk about the healers first. I love the healer frequency. And I have learned a lot about the healer frequency this last year. I definitely would say that the healers and the warriors have the most difficult time with the problem of comparison. Because our roles are very similar, it is easy to get confused here. So the healer is full of compassion. We love to serve, and we healers have an ability to detect those who most need their help. They seem to almost effortlessly find those who are in need of help, of healing, and they have an ability to help others feel comfortable in their presence and offer a very grounding type of support. They are able to identify wounds and injuries very quickly. I want to say that one more time. Healers are very good, I would say elite, at identifying wounds and injuries very quickly and making a plan for how to address a wound or the wound in others. And for this, we need healers to own this role because their skill set is so potent to the 40,000 foot view of all of us operating and maxing out our energy types. So occasionally, healers will hold on to a confusion energy about how they are to use their gifts and will believe that their value lies in serving others only. So that's something to be aware of, my healers. And they will allow themselves to get out of balance in the giving and receiving energy, completely draining their body in an attempt to serve. If there is a confusion energy, it is also possible for the healer energy to swim in circles of those who do not desire to actually heal, rather hope that someone else will cover for their injuries and wounds and allow them to stay in that state. So healers, it can be difficult for a healer to know the line between helping and enabling. And that really gives you a sense of clarity. That right there is identity clarity. When you know the difference between the helping frequency and the enabling frequency. And I'm going to go back one slide. choosing to be okay with that, choosing to not insert yourself as the savior, choosing to not insert yourself that is somehow your job to make everyone happy. And if everyone's not happy, then you do not stop giving. That is a shadow side of the energy type of the healers. So we're going to go forward again. Occasionally, due to the nature of the interaction between warriors and healers, you will find healers who feel they are not as good or valuable as a warrior, and so will defer and back down to a warrior rather than honoring their own energy and boundaries. It is possible for wounded warriors and wounded healers to find themselves in codependent relationships with each other. Now, the reason for this is if you imagine a battlefield, to just go forward in the context of what we're training on today, my healers and my warriors are both on the front lines of the battlefield. But the role of a healer is to identify wounds quickly and find a way to create an action plan to support those injuries. The warrior's role is to slay dragons, and those fundamentally are different, but there are similarities in desiring to help people. So if you are confused about your energy type and you believe that you're supposed to help the wounded and those who have injuries the way a warrior does, you will often find yourself in burnout. You will often find yourself in sabotage. You will often find yourself in codependent relationships. Instead of owning the glorious light that you are and all the tools that you have and all the ways that you maximize the effort, because each of our energy types are really critical in what is transpiring on a day-to-day basis. So when I think of the healer energy, I really have this beautiful visual of this woman with a cape on, and she has a horse, and she has this satchel of tools inside of that satchel. Sometimes I think of oils or herbs, in quickly being able to support who they're looking for, which is anyone with wounds or injuries. And they have this glorious, stately vibration of goodness and compassion and love. And that cloak allows them to wrap their love around those people that they are looking for to support and help. And the grace that a healer carries, and the poise that a healer carries, even the voice of a healer has that grounding tone. And we are so privileged to work with healers. And I just have such a reverence for the healers in Women's Empire, especially this last year, who have stayed in the fire with us warriors and guardians and forged a path of owning their energy type in such a profound, prophetic way. It has been magnificent to watch. And one of those healers you can see in this picture is the amazing Whitney Johnson. She is an advanced healer. And so if you're a healer, she's a great resource for you to rub shoulders with. She's also a Reiki master, and she is so good at that. So I love the healer frequency. I have such honor and respect for it. And I have two children who I identify with as the healer frequency. So here's some little tidbits, and this is also in my blueprint, but healers in business. So the balance in the home is such a high priority for a healer that it can often lengthen the time of projects or goals. In order for a healer to accomplish what they want, they are not willing, an advanced healer is not willing to compromise the balance in the home in order for that project or goal to happen. And this is where I see my untrained healers suffer, is they continue to believe that they should ram over that point of honoring themselves. They should ignore the balance in the home and stop making that a priority and ram that signal over, which harms it. That is like them harming themselves. And whenever a healer does this, they suffer consequences. They actually don't experience the fruit of what they really want, but they think that if they do it that way, they will, but they don't. So an advanced healer will choose, they will stress the balance to, let me say that one more time. An advanced healer will know when to stress the balance in the home when they're addressing trauma. But other than that, they will choose to prioritize the balance in the home. We know the top priority for a healer is to find the wounded. They are so wonderful at honoring agency and choice. I find that a lot of the healer energy types find sanctuary in music, art, creativity, and are supported by visuals, or may need steps repeated in order to solidify clarity. So for us warriors and guardians, we just can know when we're stepping into a frame of results with a healer that it's good for them to ask for visuals. It's good for them to ask for clarity or steps to be repeated, because that's how they accomplish it in a pace that honors themselves. Healers may require anchoring into how a business system will allow them to actually reach the wounded faster. If your motive for a business is not rooted in how you can support yourself in finding the wounded faster, you will drop, you will set down, you will forget, you will put in a box your ability to solve problems on earth and your desire to have that frequency exchange with others. If you are distracted by all the other motives that even some of our warriors and guardians care about, and they're very valid. All of the ways that each energy types cares about things is all valid. But if you're not anchored into how your business allows you to reach the wounded faster, you will burn out. Healers are motivated by fun and ease. They can run quickly, but to stay in integrity are often paced for that long-term vision. Priority based on the largest fire or the most endangered person situation. So they will recognize how to triage quickly the wounded and find the most endangered person that they need to go to. They are great at gathering tools and resources to help the wounded. And like a healer in business, in the way that a healer markets, might sometimes feel similar to the warrior, but the essence, the baseline needs to again be anchored in allowing them to reach the wounded and allowing them to share their love, and have that be the frequency that motivates them behind marketing or selling or building systems within their business. And then we've highlighted here, the biggest temptation is to look at the warrior and feel that they should operate the same way in business. And again, this is why the identity clarity is so crucial, because right here, if you are clear in the way that you prioritize balance in the home, and it's okay that things take longer because of that, there's nothing to have friction about when we're looking at the other ways the other energy types are doing things. Healers also will offer to hold space or healing whenever they recognize a guardian becomes overwhelmed. And they also are really good at doing this for the warriors as well. So that is the healer. Take a minute in your journal and just write down a few thoughts. If this is not your energy type, write down a few things that you recognize you could honor in some of the healers around you. In recognizing their strengths and some of their temptations or weaknesses, how can you support them in identifying the power that they possess? how can you offer a frequency of love, of strength, just by merely learning about the healer? And if you are resonating with this frequency, just know that you are incredible, that you are needed, and that you are needed more than ever to step forward in this role, in this capacity on earth than ever before. Okay, take a deep breath. We're gonna shift to warrior. So this is my energy type. I have a lot of experience in my warrior energy, and I have learned how to master the warrior because I have learned to listen and understand the healer and the guardians in my life. So the warriors are full of passion, fire, and forward motion. They will run head forward or headlong into any situation and are incredible at making adjustments as necessary while on the run. They quickly identify dragons and waste no time in creating a plan to slay the dragon, regardless of how big or small the dragon is. They are excellent at helping others identify dragons and love to help others create battle plans. They dream big, they act big, and they accomplish big. Warriors are results driven. So we can often express our encouragement as battle commands. So right here, when I mentioned the power to choose to translate communication coming to you, when you are in communication or conversation with a warrior and you feel that frequency of the battle command, you have the power to translate that in a way that makes sense to you with what I'm sharing with you today. And you can recognize that the only reason a warrior would give communication through a frequency of a battle command is because of their role in the battle, which is to slay dragons, which is to get a result. So that is also sometimes tender or hard for a warrior, because not always do others receive their communication. And sometimes they immediately deny or are disgusted by or just push away the warriors in their life because they don't really say it in a way that feels loving. But I promise you that at the root of every battle command is love, is a sincere desire to help you win. And I have a little wound here because I've heard for so long in my life, I don't say it the right way. I say it intensely. Even this morning, I had a consultation with a client and she was colliding with my energy, and she could feel the encouragement as a battle command, but she was interpreting that through the filter of shame because she has her own wound, right? And so we have the power to set down the shame and set down the doubt and just see each other for things as they really are. And that is the power of what I'm sharing with you today, is that you begin to see things as they really are. Therefore, you are encouraged instead of discouraged. Warriors, they can occasionally show some frustration when their loved ones don't seem focused on the battle at hand. And that's because we like to win the war. We like to win the battle. A wounded warrior can often misinterpret who the enemy is. This is a huge one for warriors. Huge one. Even me, a very trained, advanced warrior, and I am shifting to seasoned. I still get to coach myself when I'm in a conversation. Like I can think of one just a couple weeks ago with my husband where I had to pace myself. My husband is not the enemy. The feedback that he is giving me is not doubting my ability to win the war. He is helping me win the war. He is not my enemy. My children who get in my way or are loud or whatever, don't make their bed, they are not the enemy. Even though I want to get to the end result of the task at hand, even though they don't fulfill on something like that, they are not the enemy. So being very clear about who and what the right enemy is really a skill that warriors get to move through. And you can always tell an untrained warrior because they are in the wrong battles, because they have misidentified the wrong enemy. And so they're all twisted up in all these crazy battles because they keep believing that the people that they love are their enemies. And they are not. So a wounded energy can often misinterpret who the enemy is. Just imagine a warrior with a blindfold on, aware of danger, and slinging their sword every which way. If a wounded warrior feels challenged or backed into a corner or forced, they can sometimes go on the attack to those who are closest to them and those who are trying to help them. And that is because they like to win. So again, they've misidentified you as the enemy because of that misinterpretation of the force energy, which I wrote about in my book, Embracing the Feminine Warrior, because this has been a lifelong pursuit for me. And I've got a little baby girl who is now a warrior. And I'm like, okay, she and I are gonna have lots of fun. So warriors, they are the dragon slayers in our lives. A warrior energy is often similar to a summer storm. It can come in fast and quick, fast and furious, but tends to blow over just as quickly. A good way to help a warrior when they are wounded is to first and most importantly, honor their agency, their ability to choose, their ability to see what needs to happen on the battlefield, their ability to win. And once they have been honored, you've spoken to them in language that honors that, they also get to choose to receive help. And this is one of the greatest strengths of the warrior, is their weakness. To recognize that they can win the war faster if they will ask for help. When they are frustrated, they most often need a dragon to slay. So allowing them space and guidance so that they can develop an action plan is usually the best help. So warriors in business operate at a sprint versus endurance pace. So I want you to remember that, because healing is not a sprint pace. And often that can frustrate a warrior because warriors want to move through something as fast as possible. So this is a space whenever myself or other warriors are healing their own wounds, I get to often remind them this healing is not a sprint pace, but in business, we operate in sprint pace. We like when other people are around us operate in sprint pace. And when we have to slow down, this is where a temptation can come in for warriors to believe that we are dragging people is somehow going to make it better, or you're slowing me down because I'm not able to win as fast, which is all deception. That is all deception in the warrior energy. And I often get to coach my warriors to recognize none of that will matter. None of those finish lines, none of those wars that you wage and win will matter if the people that you love have been slayed in the process. So part of advancing your warrior energy type is having the wisdom inside of you to recognize that. Warriors don't need a lot of details. We need you to get to the meat, get to the heart, get to the specificity of what needs to happen. We don't need all the fluff and buff. We don't need all the details. We don't need a story. We just need the direct, bold, succinct information. And the fastest way you can deliver it to us, the faster we will experience elation. Now, the other thing that happens here, right, is when a warrior is rushing another energy type by going like, yes, yes, Kate, that's enough, great, I don't want to hear. Another energy type can often feel if they are wounded, like that person doesn't love them or isn't listening to them, which is not true. So when the other energy types co-empower themselves to receive that translation and not get offended, again, deeper connection is available for you. Warriors use and utilize deadlines. We are taskmasters. We are comfortable and well-versed in technology. Technology is easy for us. It's fast-paced, we're fast-paced, we're a good match. Slower tempos require greater fortification in order to hold. So we have to fortify ourselves if we have to slow down. It's much easier for us to operate in that sprint fast pace. And for the other energy types, that is not always the case. You have to fortify yourself to keep up with us. We have to fortify ourselves to slow down to pace with you. So we both have a balance point, right, in recognizing that in ourselves. And that's something we have to choose to pull in. When I was talking about receiving, this would be the part to receive. Receive. From our strategy that will allow us to win, and we are willing to manage the friction and the risk and the stress in order for that win to happen. So I often giggle because in relationships, in marriage, this is where I see a lot of problems. When one spouse is a warrior and one is not, and they're still learning how to utilize and how to compromise in stressing the systems. That's always an interesting collision. Okay, warriors speak in sequencing language. A to B, B to C, C to D. We think in a way that allows things to happen because we're after results. We operate in a quicker tempo, and that creates momentum for healers and guardians. And you need us in your what I can do in a day would probably blow some of my healers and guardians' minds, because my ability to stay in balance is completely my reality while working on many tasks. We are bold and direct. We are completion driven. We hunger for results. We are driven. Our mission is to slay dragons. And we get to adjust the pace when working with healers and guardians in order to avoid frustration. So again, to co-empower a self-warrior, you can choose to adjust the pace, and that will allow you to not expend wasted energy on complaining about slowing down if you are willing to recognize the wisdom in slowing down when you're working with healers and guardians. Okay. So if you are, let's go back for a second. If you're a warrior, take a few minutes and allow yourself to just write down some notes. If you know warriors in your life who you are resonating with as I'm talking, and there's been kind of this light bulb moment come over you, don't forget to write that down, because the identity content I'm exposing you to is for identity clarity and how you see yourself and how you can honor others. And that allows deeper connection to continue to happen with quicker translations and the skill set of communication to enhance. So I don't know where my picture went for my guardian right here. All right, so guardians are great translators. Guardians are able to speak both the warrior and the healer language. So if we keep that image of a battlefield in mind, our warriors and healers are on the front lines, but our guardians are up on the hill. They are like the tree in the battlefield. They hold vision and they can see perspectives that allow the warrior to slay the dragon and you are so wonderful at creating translations between the warriors and the healers and the frustrations in order for each role to maximize their efforts. Guardians often serve as translators for the two, and especially when there is a wounded warrior or a wounded healer, due to their ability to speak both languages and see different perspectives, they are often able to build bridges and offer support. And they are able to hold space for others seemingly almost indefinitely. My husband is a guardian energy, and I joke that he can just like wrap his arms around the entire existence of the frame and hold space for everything that's happening. And that additional frequency is like a safety feeling. And it's just this really beautiful tone that I have learned to find intense love for. When he and I were first married, I used to complain that he wasn't like me. And now I recognize that he was the perfect growth partner for me to max out who I was as he is maxing out who he is. And we can accomplish way more because I value his perspectives, which gives me the ability to strategize and deploy an action plan faster. So my guardians, they are wonderful at that 40,000 foot view. Occasionally when untrained or wounded, they will feel that they do not know themselves. And they find many ways that they relate to the warrior, but not completely enough to feel completely at peace there. And same is true for the healer frequency. Not enough to feel completely at peace in the healer, but they can relate to them. So as a result, sometimes guardians will often doubt themselves and lean too much on the validation of others to determine if they have value. But their role in providing perspectives and 40,000 foot views and translations is just so vital and necessary. And often, if the guardian, they will even sometimes identify as having social anxiety, because if they are not feeling grounded, any kind of social engagement can be overwhelming to them. Occasionally, they are hesitant to offer their perspective simply because it comes so naturally to them that they feel like everyone else must surely already see this, and they probably don't need their help, which is a lie. We actually don't naturally have that perspective. You do, which is why we need you to open your mouth. And so I often joke that an untrained guardian is like a watchman up in the tower who never comes out, who never shares what he can see, because he thinks that because of where he is on the battlefield, everyone else can see that this is what's coming. They're coming. He thinks everyone else can see it, but really we're on the battlefield, like we're on the front lines. We can't see that at all. And so when you step out of that untrained watchman and step out of your tower and come down and share with us your perspectives, and then recognize, up, down, up, down, up, down, that is freedom. That is where your value grows exponentially. Okay, so there are times that guardians will step into warrior or into healer, but they will quickly begin to feel out of balance and depleted. This leaves them rather vulnerable to confusion energy and depression or anxiety. So as we're highlighting some of the strengths of the guardian, your opportunity to co-empower yourselves is to recognize when you step into healer, make sure you fortify yourself as you ease back out of that. When you step into healer or warrior, again, recognizing how to fortify yourself instead of create more confusion or anxiety around that. So the guardian in business, like we've highlighted, perspective is their gift and language. Guardians operate in an endurance frequency, not a sprint pace, and there is wisdom in that. So already know that when it comes to business, you are going to take the maximum allotted time to finish something because you like to gather all the perspectives, and that is okay. And you can own that when you're in a situation with a warrior. Guardians can operate swiftly, but they need to decompress if and when that happens. They require breaks to fortify their energy and mental capacity, especially if we are bringing to pass a big project. They need to decompress, and they need to fortify their mental capacity. Guardians receive a gentle push from warriors to break their current box, and then they receive space and healing from the healers when they're overwhelmed. Technology often feels like a foreign language for a guardian and does require a significant amount of patience and promptings to the next steps in the sequence. And it's interesting because when it comes to technology, there's something that happens with the perspective and sequencing quickly, 1 to 2 to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 to 6. Like it somehow changes when it comes to technology. And that doesn't mean that's good or bad. It's just neutral information that helps them know how to ask for help, how to pace a project whenever you're involving technology in a way that makes most sense to your ability to work through that. Guardians are less likely to put stress on the systems at home for business. They are long-term focused. They love to bounce from task to task, but require focus to reach completion on one item. Sometimes they can waste time if they're not connected and focused on tasks, just because bouncing around creates overwhelm in the process. Guardians will use the maximum allotted time. They are detailed in language and instructions. So in Women's Empire, when I have guardians in my space, we use the app called Voxer to communicate. My guardian messages are always like way long, and there's lots of details, and there's lots of story involved in them sharing their experience and giving instructions. And so as a warrior, I get to choose into when I am ready and in a space where I can pace, right, with that level of language and instruction. So I don't need to have friction about it, which is a waste of my energy. I just need to recognize when I'm going to step into that and choose that for myself. Temptation to compare their stamina to a warrior's, and often we'll see guardians kind of beat themselves up if they step into comparison. So really feeling grounded and deeply connected to a project is really crucial for our guardian in order to proceed forward with it. So I know we mentioned for healers, they need to be anchored to how their business is going to help them find the wounded. And for guardians, they need to feel grounded and connected to the reason why they're in business, or the reason why they're moving a goal forward, or the reason why they're moving a project forward, in order for them to have the power generated to step into that long-term focus. And that has to do with their desires to see the 40,000 foot view. So that then they can ground to staying out of the clouds and in the mud to make that happen. They may require downtime after working with a warrior to recharge and bring the tempo back to center. So take a minute and ask yourself, are you a guardian? And have you been acting as a warrior or acting as a healer, but you're actually naturally a natural fit for you as a guardian? Just take some inventory for a minute, write down any aha moments, write down any language pieces, write down any people that come to your mind that might help you exemplify some of these traits in the energy type. Some of you may have seen my Facebook post about this, some of you may have not, but I wanted to include it in our training tonight because as a fitness coach for 17 years now, I have learned so much, but some of the things I've learned is how elements in the body, specifically 4 elements, sodium, potassium, calcium, and magnesium, relate to our energy types. And when we are operating from our individual energy types, or we step into an energy type for a season in our life, there is a complementary physiological agent that is also the anchoring point in the temporal being of that spiritual flow of energy that's happening. Like, they go hand in hand. So my warriors are typically processing information through anger. And anger, my opinion, is emotions are information. They are not good or bad. What makes them bad is when we don't get the information from the emotion and it continues to stay and take over our electrical system or your chakras. So anger is my friend. Anger is fuel. Anger is information for me as a warrior. And through the process of getting that information from anger, if I'm not getting it very quickly, I often burn through my calcium storages faster because calcium is an alkalizing agent that neutralizes additional acid in my body. And my body will take calcium from my bones. It will absorb all the calcium every time I have a menstrual period in order to regulate the additional acid that might be coming in from the anger response. So for my warriors, I often ask them, how is their calcium? How are you able to stay asleep? Are you staying asleep at night? You may not have trouble falling asleep, but then you have trouble staying asleep. That is calcium. Your calcium levels are off if you have trouble staying asleep. And just because we are processing information through anger, we burn through the calciums faster. So I always ask my warriors to just do a little gut check and see if you might need some additional fortification there. Sometimes if I'm working with an untrained warrior who is lacking a lot of skill sets and translations and being able to see things as they really are, they probably are depleted in their calcium storages because anger is taking over the conversation most of the time. For my guardians, I see them process a lot through the emotional response, fear. And so that is magnesium. Worry, fear is magnesium. They're going to burn through their magnesium storages, and magnesium is responsible for over 500 metabolic processes, my friends. You can't actually get magnesium to fortify from the food you eat. You have to fortify your magnesium levels, and you can't do that through a oral supplement. It will never get your red blood cells to cell saturation through an oral supplement. That's also stripped of its coenzymes and cofactors as well. And if your potassium levels aren't up to a manageable level in your body, you'll just diarrhea out the magnesium anyway. So with my guardians, if you have trouble falling asleep, that's also an indication that your magnesium is low. And my favorite way to fortify with magnesium is transdermal magnesium through living the good life naturally. I did not include that information in your blueprint, but if you want it, leave me a message in the Facebook community and I will get it to you. There also is a training that I'm going to post here this month, all about all of this, that has all of this information on it. So you'll just need to go watch that training and access that blueprint, and everything is on there. My healers often burn through their potassium storages because they're processing a lot of their wounds through shame. And eventually we want to help them drop the shame. Like, shame kills fire. Shame kills passion. Shame kills love. And so once they learn how to elevate out of the shame, I watch their potassium levels rise. I see a lot of healers struggle with some sort of dis-ease or interruption in their feminine organs, their ovaries, their uterus. They've had cystic fibrosis, or they've had fibroids or something that has some complications there because of the amount of shame that they're processing, and then that affects their potassium levels. So my favorite source of potassium is blackstrap molasses, organic blackstrap molasses. That's my favorite. And then anytime I see someone kind of choosing, because it's choice, choosing to operate in all three frames, that's when I see their sodium levels get depleted. And sodium is seriously utilized in every single nervous interaction, like nervous cell, nervous system response. Any communication your body does, it requires a sodium and a potassium ion. So there are other variables that impact your sodium levels, but when it comes to energy types, the one I see depleted is when you're trying to operate in all three, and you're trying to be the hero in all three, and you're not choosing to be at home with one and step into them as needed, and then choose to go back to the one that feels at home. So there's some insight for your body, my friends. I'm so glad you joined us for this particular training on your identity. You know, the first stage of Women's Empire is called The Queen Eats First. This is all about the power conversation inside of a woman. We map you through all kinds of additional maps that relate to your body, your relationships, your spirituality, your identity, and your business. And the map we use in The Queen Eats First is voltage, vision, value, and mapping you to victory. So I actually have 2 more spots for the December 6th and 7th Queen Eats First. It's in St. George, Utah. Your lodging is included. You must arrive Thursday evening. You will be with us until 3 p.m. on that Saturday. And then you're with us the entire first quarter of 2019. So you actually really get like 4 months of coaching with me and my team. And you get a Reiki session from me following the event. So go to www.thequeeneatsfirst.com and apply now and secure one of those last 2 spots, because they're going to go fast. And I can't wait to have you message me or share in the Facebook community which energy type you resonate with most. Or if you have more questions, I'd love to hear your questions and support you, because there is so much freedom in utilizing this map to understand how to create deeper connections for those that you love and honoring yourself. And that's what we wanted to fortify you with this quarter: how you see yourself and how that supports yourself in consciously creating who you choose to be, hunting the greatest version of you, and allowing all of that strength to return to you, and operating from that piece of power and how that impacts your family. If the queen doesn't rise, the family dies.